Hi Scorpio Sun and Rising. Welcome to a video looking at the transits of Saturn going into Pisces and Pluto going into Aquarius. I feel like I did this one for you. I hope I didn't talk for half an hour and then erase it. But in any case, I can't find it posted. So if I did do it, I'm doing it again. So, in March of 2023, we're going to have a phenomenal shift because we're going to have these two planets that are considered outer planets. They're not personal to us, so their transit isn't very quick through each sign, and they're both changing signs in the month of March of 2023. Now, Saturn has about 2.5 year transit time. So that's a bit of time, but Pluto can have as much as 20 years. In the case of Pluto in Aquarius, it's going to last for 20 years. And I was under the impression it was usually like 15 years because that's how long it has been in Capricorn, but I guess it's different depending on the transit. And I don't know if it's ever more than 20 years, but it's called a generational planet because it is around that time frame of 15 years to 20 years. So this is really a major thing in terms of humanity's sake because Pluto hasn't been in the sign of Aquarius since the American Revolution, the French Revolution in the late 1700s. And if you think about both of those historical events, it is very Aquarian because it's concerning the collective, concerning the masses, and involving liberation. So here we are again at that point in history. History repeats itself, doesn't it? And so there's that macro level of how it affects humanity, but then we have it affect particular houses in our chart, depending on what our sun sign is or our rising sign. And so that's why I'm including both, because that can be relevant for people who have the sun or the rising sign in Scorpio. So let's start with Saturn. I'm going to also talk about the current transits in each sign because based on your own chart, you may continue to have Saturn in the fourth house of home and family, and definitely with Pluto. Pluto is going to go into Aquarius in 2023 in March and stay there for a little while at 0 degrees, but it's then going to retrograde and it's going to go back into Capricorn. So it will go back into the third house for you. So starting with Saturn, Saturn has been in Aquarius for the past 2+ years, and you may have found that this has been a period where the domestic side of life has had a lot more responsibility placed on you in some way. Now, the fourth house can be your family of origin, particularly your parents. I would say the mother, some people say the father, we could just say both, or one or the other. And in some cases, you might have had to take care of this parent. And there's a sense of duty with Saturn because Saturn represents tradition, it represents obligation or responsibility. And so sometimes people do things out of a sense of duty. They may not want to do it. They may not be happy about it, but they're doing it anyway. And um, and sometimes they might be, honored to do it. So it could be like, if you're taking care of a parent, you're like, oh wow, this parent took care of me for 18 years. I'm honored to be able to return the favor, and you feel good about it. But I'm just saying that in some cases it may be something you do because you feel like they're family and you have to do it. In some cases, a Scorpio person may be asked to take care of a parent and they refuse to do it because they had issues with abuse by that parent, or they felt that that parent um, allowed another adult to abuse them, and they stood idly by while somebody else abused them, and they just don't have that kind of relationship with their parent that they trust them, or they have too much baggage, and being around that parent triggers them, and nobody can tell you if you're doing the right thing or not. I mean, the wrong thing. Because sometimes you have to protect yourself if you're in a certain situation, and you might feel very guilty about it, but you decide not to do it. So, even that can be Saturn, because it could be some kind of feeling of oppression, like I'm supposed to do this, and it's like an agonizing decision. Another possibility is that you're dealing with real estate matters. Maybe you're buying your first home, and it doesn't mean that you're in your late 20s. You might be somebody who's, in your 50s, and you happen to have the opportunity to buy a home, have a mortgage, and it's like that responsibility. You're laying down roots, so to speak. So, on March 7th, you're going to have Saturn go into Pisces, and Pisces is a fellow water sign. And so that's going to be a more harmonious angle, because that is a trine versus a square, which is what Aquarius represents. When Mars trines your sun or ascendant from the fifth house, it is a cooperative energy, in, I would say, like, especially with the sun sign, because the fifth house rules the sun. So it really favors anything creative. The fifth house is the house of children. It's the house of like creativity. It's the house of love. And one thing I was going to say, even when Saturn is in the fourth house, it might have been a time when you decided to become a parent. Now, you may not have actually gotten pregnant or impregnated somebody else, but you made that decision. Maybe you were kind of tossing it back and forth in your mind, and you said, yeah, I think I'm going to do it. This is the right time to do that. Or if you are taking the responsibility maybe of a grandchild or another family member's child, that can be it as well. So all of these things can be possibilities. It doesn't have to be the first thing I said, about a parent. It could be something else. So when Saturn is in the fifth house, it's kind of weird, because the fifth house is a house of pleasure. It's the house of pastimes, fun things that you do, hobbies, or uh, amusements. It's going to parties, it's going to concerts. It could be sporting events, or even like sometimes competitive sports. And so when Saturn is here, it's like you're taking these things seriously. I said before, it's also love. So sometimes, like Jupiter was in this house a couple of years ago, and Jupiter can be a lot of love affairs. With Scorpio, that may not be something that you are like really keen on because you tend to be really serious about love. But for those who feel that sense of, a romantic nature, sometimes that really, can play into it. It's not just fifth house can be recreational sex, but for a Scorpio person, the fifth house could be like really exercising your romantic nature. But if you're just having these brief flings, if they just turn out to be brief, that can be frustrating for somebody like you because you do tend to be very tenacious, being a fixed sign, and you want that consistency in that person that you're dealing with, not just, a conveyor belt of one affair after the other. So this could be more like a situation where this could be more your speed to have Saturn here because you might take it seriously. If you're an artist and maybe you haven't um, actually been doing art as a career, for instance, Saturn can make you desire that. And Saturn is actually the ruler of the 10th house of career in its sign of Capricorn. So it it can always have that effect. When it's in a particular house, maybe you think about doing it more seriously. It's a serious planet. So even though the fifth house has this fun attached to it, it can be like, if you have a hobby, you're like, you know what, I don't want to just do this frivolously. I want to do this as a career. I might as well. And you're taking it more seriously. But you could also say that it is taking everything seriously, even um, you know the times of that your downtime that's supposed to be the free time where you're doing things just for fun, even that you're being serious about. And it's actually, the fifth house can be the business that you own, so it actually can be quite consistent with turning something that you do as a hobby into a business. And, there's nothing wrong with that as long as you're doing it because you want to maybe capitalize on it. Maybe you feel like it can be another income stream for you, and you still can derive pleasure from it as long as that's the case. But if it's something that turns into just another obligation, then I would say it would be a negative choice to make. So it's all dependent on um, intention. So if you meet somebody, you may be like, something, if you're not ready to commit, I'm not ready to commit. But you have to remember, Scorpio, that you do have that intensity about you anyway. So you don't want to scare people away. When Saturn is in the fifth house, you may not have the same amount of possibilities for love because Saturn tends to be more about quality than quantity. And so you want to take things seriously, but you don't want to move too quickly and get too, demanding that somebody commit to you because you may feel that inside. You may be like, I don't want any of this excess. I just want a partner. And the partnership is the seventh house. And actually, even in 2023, there's going to be an eclipse in that seventh house in Taurus. And you also have Uranus in the seventh house. So it's not really this stable area for you. And so trying to force commitment too soon would be probably, I think would be foolhardy, especially if you've just met a person. So you want to chill, but you can certainly be more mindful of the people that you meet and whether or not they are relationship material. That might be the best way to utilize this energy is just to, on the front end of things, really vet that person and say, see if that person really is somebody you could see yourself with for the long haul, so you don't waste your time. So let's talk about Pluto. So Pluto has been in Capricorn for the past 15 plus years. And again, that's going to depend on each person's individual charts, but for a long time. And the third house is the house of the mind. And so I call it the mundane mind because the ninth house is the house of higher learning. That's the opposite house. And so that is more of the, um, like, for instance, if you're talking about educational institutions, it would be college versus grammar school or high school. It would be philosophy versus how to, or, some other kind of practical, mundane knowledge. And the third house is also the house of media, including social media. So the 11th house, being the house of Aquarius and technology, is the house of the internet. But the third house can also be the internet because of social media and how we connect, how we communicate with others. Um, so the Pluto has been there, and what else? Siblings, brothers and sisters are third house, but also aunts, uncles, and cousins are third house. So if you have had any kind of uh, power issues, abuse of power with these relatives, that might explain it because Pluto has been here. And this can be some form of abuse. So if you are on the younger side, I could see this being especially the case if you have any kind of, in the last 15 years, let's say you're only like 25 right now, and when you were like 11 years old, something happened with an uncle or something like that. Um, and Pluto can involve secrets. So there could be secrets with one of these relatives, and it could be kind of intense and heavy. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily something very pleasant. But on the other hand, um, this can be some that since the third house is the house of the mind, this might be something where you have learned to empower yourself through your thoughts. And it's funny because I'm trying to think back 15 years ago. I don't have this transit, but I'm just like thinking out loud now because I'm trying to think about when I first learned about The Secret or when that book came out. And I think it was around 2007 or 2006. And that was around the time that maybe a year later where I saw this. I think it was the movie that I actually saw first called The Secret. And that might have been 2007. So that really goes along with Pluto went into Capricorn in 2008. So it was right before that. But anyway, 15 years ago, that stuff was very popular. And it really came into widespread prominence, and the law of attraction became a household word. I said world word. Now, I'm trying to remember if law of attraction was something that people said, in the year 2000 or in the 90s. I don't recall that that's the case. I do know that these belief systems are not new. There's actually a book I had way before that. It was called um, Do What You Love and the Money Will Follow. I don't remember when I got that book, but that's a long time ago, and I didn't even know who wrote that. But those are all the same kind of concepts where it's like about following your bliss, and you will be a vibrational match to positive events if you're doing something that you really enjoy. So you may, first of all, Pluto is one of your rulers, Scorpio. So this is all, you already have an affinity for Pluto. And some of you, sun sign Scorpios, may already have Mercury in Scorpio. So it's going to be like Pluto in the third house is like having Mercury in Scorpio. And so there's really this attraction to transformational thought when somebody has that. And that reminds me of a title of another book. The late Wayne Dyer had a book that was called Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. I think that was the name of it. So that's a perfect example of how you can transform yourself starting with the way that you think. And so I'm imagining that there are a fair number of you who have embraced this in the past 15 years. Then we're going to have Pluto go into your fourth house. It's going to be on March 23rd, and just a fun little factoid that I've been talking about is that March 23rd, 2023 is a numerical palindrome, meaning that backwards and forwards it's the same numbers based on the way that Americans write dates. We start with the month. So 3/23, 2023 is the same backwards. Does that have any cosmic meaning? Well, you tell me. I think it might. I don't think this is a random chaotic universe, so there you go. But anyway, the fourth house is the house of home and family. Pluto is this excavator. So it can be your childhood, and you can be on a mission to kind of like diving deep into the past. I do believe that this transit is not going to be relevant for the vast majority of you until at least 2024. So this is kind of a preview of that. And actually, given that you have Pluto currently in your third house, this is a great time to prepare mentally for it emotionally affecting you, because the fourth house is a water house, and you can protect yourself from the more challenging aspects of that transit. Because for people that are, kind of like spiritually and especially psychologically bypassing in their life, that Pluto in the fourth house can be very, very upsetting or disturbing because they haven't been doing the work. Now, do I think the average Scorpio is going to fall into that category? Not necessarily, because most of you, this is your way of life, is to basically, you know, I was going to say live on the edge, but it's not the edge unless we're talking about the edge of emotions, because you're already very deep. But some Scorpios have the moon in an air sign. You might have the moon in Gemini or Libra or Aquarius, and you tend to emotionally bypass. And if that were the case, it could be a protective um, way of dealing with past trauma. But this would be the time when you would likely have to face the music. This can be a time that some of you go into psychotherapy. Um, I think that I'm not here to say that every therapist is equal. So if you're dealing with a therapist who really isn't helping you to make sense of the past and then giving you, tools, life hacks, life coping tools, then that isn't necessarily a therapist who's going to really get to the heart of the matter. So um, you would have to, choose wisely to get that kind of therapist that is really going to go on this journey with you. And of course, there are other types of healers that could do the same thing. And but the bottom line is it can be very emotionally um, demanding or challenging to have this transit, because it might go layer by layer, the excavator, Pluto. Luckily for you, Pluto is one of your rulers, so you are already familiar with this type of activity, and it might not be so daunting as it would be for another sign. But if you're a sun in Scorpio and you have like an inner planet in Libra and you like to make nice, maybe you have Mercury in Libra, and it bothers you when you have these scorpionic types of reactions to life, or you have a moon sign in Libra or or Pisces or something, and you just feel like I shouldn't be thinking this, I shouldn't be feeling this, then that can be something that you have to deal with. Or like I think I had said that earlier, another air sign like Gemini or Aquarius, because, or even Earth element, because it wants to be um, logical or rational. It doesn't necessarily want to deal with emotions. So it can be very uncomfortable to be in that situation and feeling like you have to face the music. But I think that you will do so. And not everybody has Pluto go through their fourth house. So this can even heal ancestral karma, because that would be the fourth house. And so if you have a family where there are certain things that have been passed down that are of the negative variety, that can be ancestral karma, and Pluto can heal that. Now, it might, bust it wide open, so there might be some unpleasant truths that emerge and secrets that are revealed. But like they say, you're only as sick as your secrets. This can be very so this transit can be very profound. Let's put it that way. We talk about intensity, but that's also profundity, something that isn't shallow. Again, this is a sneak peek into the future. Vast majority of you will not experience this in 2023, but it doesn't hurt to bring it up and give a sneak peek. Okay, Scorpio, that's what I have for you. I hope that you enjoyed this and resonated with it. Of course, it hasn't happened yet, but some of it I've described that already has happened. If you would like a private reading with me, the link is below. Take care. Bye.